Yeah, it is interesting living with two sisters, and my only brother is the dog, basically. Um,
Welcome to Book Therapy. I'm your host, Kim Patton. There's no way to count how many books are floating around in this world. Some are decent, some are truly terrible, and some are great. Today we're going to take a deep dive into one great book. Together we will discover gems of truth and encouragement to help you face your current season of life. I'm ready, you're ready, let's get this party started. Hello, thank you all for joining me today. This episode features a young man who just might inspire you. He's my youngest guest so far, and I think you're going to really like him. Enjoy the interview. Let's dive into the book. Today we have a new guest all the way from Colorado, and we will be talking about his new book, You're Joking Me, Jokes for Kids by a Kid. Welcome to the show, William.
Thank you.
William Daniel is a middle schooler. He's 13 years old. He's a World War II enthusiast and a competitive gymnast. He has an older sister and a twin sister and a family dog. William, I can't wait to get to the book, but first tell me how the book writing process went for you and how the book launch season has been so far.
Writing the book has been absolutely great. It's been an experience, definitely coming up with all those jokes, and recently, because my book launched, it's been really busy with marketing and managing other things. Like, I recently had my book signing,
Mm.
and so yeah, it's been busy, definitely.
So you write the book and you're in your room with paper and a pen. And then after the book launches, you're like talking to all these people and they've read your stuff. And does it feel strange that they read what you wrote and they have kind of taken ownership of it when you know more about it than them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting thinking that people are reading this, as I read books in the past and think, wow, there's so many people that are reading these books, including me, and now thinking that I have a book of my own that people are reading, and it just started at me sitting behind a desk at a computer, just thinking of jokes.
Have you always wanted to write a book or have you always told jokes? Where did this idea start for you?
I've always told jokes. I started in about second grade. I came up with jokes, and I thought they were funny. And they weren't as good as they are now. But I told them. Some people are like, "Oh, I don't get it," and I'd be just sitting there awkwardly. Um, but then there were most that I would just think, people would laugh at, and so that was a real inspiration for me. But actually getting started on the book, it started in quarantine. Actually,
Oh.
my mom was like, "Oh yeah, you want to write a book? I have, we can get you," because she's my agent.
Mm-hmm.
She's a literary agent. So she sent out my book proposal, and we actually had several publishers that wanted to write with me, but we eventually landed on Revell, and it's been great since then.
So, did you have to make any of those decisions when they came back and said, we're interested in your book? Did you have to sit down with your mom and try to figure out which was the best publisher to go with?
We did for about a month or two. We were kind of, yeah, these people they're offering, this amount, but you need to write like 200 jokes in this time period, and we're like, oh, okay, maybe that, and then we go over, and so eventually we saw Revels, and we think, yeah, this is probably the best. We'll go with them.
Cool. Well, congratulations. I mean, not
Thank
everybody
you.
gets a book traditionally published, and especially by the time that they're a teenager. So, I noticed a few things about your jokes. After I read the book, I was sitting down and thinking, okay, what characterizes his jokes? Because they're not just jokes. You have meaning behind them a little bit. And so I kind of dove into what stuck out to me. And first of all, your jokes are clean. They're appropriate, they're family friendly, they're not cruel or mean or even sarcastic, which I guess my first question is, are you sarcastic? But my second question is, why is it important to you to have clean and appropriate family friendly jokes?
To answer your question, I am not normally sarcastic when it comes to like other people.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll do it in a way that's like not offensive towards people or things. That's the best way to put it.
Okay.
If you're gonna get into sarcasm, just don't do it towards people. Um, of course, that's part of having a clean humor,
Hmm.
is not being rude towards people in general.
Okay. And why was that important to you? Did you feel like there was a lack of funny people being respectful to others?
There is. I see it every day at school. There's just so many people talking bad about each other. And although the other person kind of laughs, and they may think it's funny, and I could be wrong. I just don't think it's very appropriate, if that makes sense. It's just maybe not a good way to go about life.
So, have you ever felt like you were the brunt of a joke and that someone had maybe taken something too far? They were being a little bit mean. And so maybe you felt that way and you didn't want others to feel that way?
I have a system of not getting bullied. I'm kind of the quiet kid at school, if that makes
Okay.
sense. I don't talk very much.
Okay.
And that's one thing because people see that I'm actually serious about, getting things done. But I do see it a lot in other people, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
paying
Yeah.
attention to other people's
Of
experience
course. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not wanting to do that to someone else.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to read some of the examples because I know my listeners are dying to hear some of these jokes. So these are some examples of some clean jokes. What did the cat say when he fell into the river?
Are you kidding me?
All
Yeah.
right. And then we have why can't dogs finish movies?
Why can't dogs finish movies? Because they always pause it.
Yeah, I love it. Secondly, I see that a lot of your jokes are punny with a P. You seem to love wordplay, twisting words and common phrases, using synonyms. And let me read a few examples before you talk about it because I want everybody to hear what I mean. What do baby chickens like to buy at stores? Cheap, cheap stuff.
Mhm.
Why should you never do a staring contest with stairs?
Because they stare well.
That is so creative. I read that and I laughed, but I was like, what? How do you even think about that? Okay, one more. How bad is it to fix a roof? It's the shingle worst thing. That is so good. I love language. I'm obsessed with language and how words work. Has joke writing helped you understand the English language more and be more curious about words and phrases and why we say the things we say?
It has. It's definitely kind of my gateway into the English language.
What do you find fascinating about words and creating jokes? Because not everybody thinks this way. So if you're thinking about a roof, what came first to you? The word shingle, the shingle worst thing, or the roof? I mean, I'm just curious your process of thinking in creating these jokes because you know that it comes out of your imagination, which God
That,
gave you, which is
of
extremely
course.
creative. And
Yes.
other people, it would take them 100 years to even come up with something like this.
It just takes some imagery, I guess you could say, either from a book. If a book is saying something about a roof, for example, like the joke, or if I'm looking around and I see a roof, I'll think about roof. Okay, what's on a roof? Shingles. Shingle. That kind of sounds like the word single. And so if I put it into a phrase, oh, the single worst thing. And so I put it into a joke. How is it fixing roofs? It's the single worst or the shingle worst thing. So that's a little bit of my process right there.
When do they come to you the most? When you're out and about in the world or when you're sitting down and really thinking about it?
Sometimes I'll be sitting in church, right? And the pastor will start talking, and maybe I didn't get very much sleep the night before, and I'll kind of zone out just a little bit. And I'll think of like words because that's what I do. I process things. That's how my mind works. And so I sit there and I process and then I go, oh yeah, pair and pear. Those two words like sound alike. And
Mm.
so yeah, from there I'll come up with a joke.
Third, your jokes have great variety. You don't just write jokes about one thing. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of dad jokes or your mama jokes, or there's all kinds of categories of jokes that are very singular topic. But you write about food, planets, animals, hobbies, sports, I mean, everything. You do write a lot about food. I have on page 79, what is a potato's favorite game? Two truths and a fry. A lot about food, a lot about animals. What is your favorite topic to write about, or what do you find yourself writing about the most?
In terms of writing about in jokes or writing about in sentences or
Do you
stories.
you mean you write sentences and stories?
Well, in school, of course, but I have been thinking of writing a few fictions. But most importantly, though, I am on my second book as a co-author, actually, with my mom and grandma. We're doing it's a sequel to her first book called I Love You, Mom. It's a
Mm-hmm.
book called I Love You, Dad.
Oh.
So, I Love You Mom is like a book that you fill out and you gift it to your mom. This one's going to be the same thing, but you gift it to your dad. So I might write some about having a good relationship with your father. I do, yeah, one big thing that I do write about is relationships. That's a big topic that I spread into and how to gain relationships from humor.
Oh, which might be a sequel to your joke book.
Could be. I'm hoping to make. I've already come up with a name or a title for the book. It's called "You're Joking Me Too Much,"
Mm,
so it has a pun in there.
I see that. You're very punny. Circle back to the punny.
Yep. Some of my favorite things to write about are the ones with the most words in it, if that makes sense. Like a computer, it has so many components in it, motherboard, keys, scroll pad, all that. And that's the same with animals. You have not only do animals, they're like, us humans, they have various parts to them, but there's like several animals, with others. So I would say animals for me is a big one. You'll see a lot of animal jokes in my book.
I wondered because you're a gymnast, but I didn't see very many gymnasts. Maybe is it the vernacular or the jargon of the thing? So, like, do gymnasts have their own jargon to where maybe not everybody would know what that is if they weren't a
Exactly,
gymnast?
yeah. With gymnastics, I have one or two maybe in there. But there's a lot of skills that I would think of a joke of it, and then I'm like, you know what, people wouldn't know what that is, so it wouldn't be that funny. And that's my main problem with coming up with gymnastics jokes, but there are a few in here that I know, yeah, people know what this is. So
Was it hard to think like a reader? Because you could write all the jokes you want and you may think they're hilarious, but you have to think about how other people are going to receive it and it
yeah,
has to be funny to them.
yeah, that's kind of in my opinion, that's the disappointing part of writing. Um, is you can come up with the greatest story and everything else that you connect with, but then you have to think about your reader. Like, will they know what this is? Will they connect with it as much as you?
Every reader is different and every reader
Of
is going
course.
to expect different things. And so you can't please every reader. But
Yeah,
if you can train your mind to think like a reader, because you said you read a lot of books, so you are a reader, you know that you have consumed other people's writing and they did
of
it
course.
well
Yeah.
enough to grab your attention
Mhm.
and teach you something. But as a writer, you now have to do that. And that is a big undertaking to think on the other side of the board, I guess.
Yeah, that is a big thing of like, yeah, understanding your audience.
I mean, it sounds simple, quote unquote, but it's really not. I mean, a
It
lot of
is.
people
Yeah.
don't do it. That's why, and again, your mom would tell you this. That's why a lot of people don't get book deals, because they're not writing with an audience in mind. They're just writing a story.
Of
And I've
course.
done that in the past, where I write something just to get it off my chest or just to tell a story. But the reader is like, well, I don't know what to do with this story. I don't
Yeah.
know. It doesn't really impact my life. So I'm not really
Yeah.
connecting with it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you told us about this relationship piece. So I want to go back to that. I know you have two sisters, and I'm not sure if they gave you approval to talk about them on a podcast, but what is it like growing up in a family with siblings? And I mean, you're the only boy, and you're working on this book about relationships with your mom, and it's about your dad. So it sounds to me like you have a lot going on relationally, and it's something you're very interested in exploring more of and writing more about. So tell me why that is and what you're excited about.
Yeah. It is interesting living with two sisters, and my only brother is the dog, basically. Um, but me and my sisters, unlike from what I've heard, we get along very, very well. You will rarely, rarely hear us fighting.
Oh, that sounds lovely. I have two little girls, and they love to fight with each other.
Oh,
And one of them can't even talk.
oh man, yeah,
She's a baby. So that's good that you've gotten to that point where you and your sisters are friends.
yeah, yeah. We live life together basically. We go to school together every morning. It's been good. And a lot of people would think, yeah, oh, that must be rough growing up with like no brothers. I've gotten used to it. Mostly what I do is just talk to my friends at school.
Mm-hmm.
I see them practically every day. I go to school practically every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good. Sisters are good for you. They'll teach you things that no boy could ever teach you, right?
Yes, yes, I agree.
Well, thank you, William, for coming onto the show. Your book is available anywhere books are sold, so I will link it. And I'm so proud of you for writing a book. I just want to say congratulations and keep writing, because you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of Book Therapy. William Daniel was our guest, and we talked about his book, You're Joking Me, Jokes for Kids by a Kid. Be on the lookout for William Daniel's books to come. Sounds like he has lots of creative projects in the works, and because he's only 13, there's just lots of more good stuff to come from him. See you next time. Cheap sheeps. Oh no, I messed it up! I killed the punchline!